dead.
Why would you describe it first as a disaster for the future of Israel? You've got tens of thousands of civilians murdered, but it's foremost a disaster for the future of Israel. No, it's foremost a disaster for the families of the dead kids.
Absolutely. I made 3 points.
Because everybody sucks up to Israel in this way that suggests they're afraid. And everyone is afraid, and you know that. Everyone's like, the real problem is calling people anti-Semites allows real anti-Semites to flourish. It's like, no, actually, the real problem with calling people anti-Semites who aren't is accusing the innocent of a crime they didn't commit. And the real crime in Gaza is killing people who did nothing wrong. So those are the real problems, I would say.
70,000 dead. That is the number establishment commentator Douglas Murray accidentally threw out on live television while trying to defend state policy. But even worse than the number was how he framed it. He called tens of thousands of slaughtered human beings a disaster for the future of Israel. Think about that logic for a second. When civilians are buried under concrete, the primary concern offered by corporate media is the image and strategic future of the state doing the bombing. In this video, you're going to watch Douglas Murray try to trap Tucker Carlson using standard, scripted debate points. Watch how fast that attempt collapses when Tucker refuses to play along with the double standards and demands actual, universal human rights. I'm Neil. This is The Honest Perspective, where we measure policy by human lives, not state propaganda. Let's get into it.
I'm about to ask you that question. Clearly, I think you and I agree. We have both been critical of the Israeli government. I just want to kind of clarify terms a bit here.
Well, I've really been critical of the Israeli government.
I've been plenty critical of the Israeli government. I've told you at the beginning that we were against this war.
What do you think of Gaza?
What do I think of Gaza?
Yeah.
I think the war in Gaza, to start with, was a perfectly reasonable response in response to the horrors of October 7th. I think now the places, I mean, I've been there. Have you been to Gaza? I've been to Gaza since the war started.
They would not
it's
let
catastrophic.
me into Gaza. Trust me, very few journalists get into Gaza.
Yeah, no, I went with the IDF. It's the only way that you can go in, but nonetheless you go in and you see a flattened place. I think it is a disaster for the future of Israel, a disaster for the Palestinian people, a horror, 70,000 people dead.
Why would you describe it first as a disaster for the future of Israel? You've got tens of thousands of civilians murdered, but it's foremost a disaster for the future of Israel. No, it's foremost a disaster for the families of the dead kids.
Absolutely. I made 3 points.
Because everybody sucks up to Israel in this way that suggests they're afraid. And everyone is afraid, and you know that. Everyone's like, the real problem is calling people anti-Semites allows real anti-Semites to flourish. It's like, no, actually, the real problem with calling people anti-Semites who aren't is accusing the innocent of a crime they didn't commit. And the real crime in Gaza is killing people who did nothing wrong. So those are the real problems, I would say. But no one can say it because you have to be like, oh no, but really October 7th
I don't know what you're talking about, Gaza. We're having a...
Everyone watching this knows what I'm talking about.
Did you catch that? Douglas Murray lists 3 things: a disaster for Israel's future, a disaster for Palestinians, and 70,000 dead. And when Tucker Carlson calls him out for listing Israel's future first, Murray panics and tries to claim he made 3 points. Notice how mainstream debate works. Commentators like Murray feel required to perform a ritualistic ritual of sympathy for the state before they are allowed to mention the thousands of innocent human beings killed. Tucker refuses to accept that hierarchy. Let's look at the next part, where Murray tries to pivot to a classic trap question.
Well, let's get on to that right now.
Yeah.
Because you are critical of the government of Israel. Do you believe in Israel's right to exist? Would you consider yourself a Zionist in that narrow definition?
What does that mean, a right to exist?
The existence of the political state of Israel as
but
it
has
existed,
a right. What does that mean?
That you think it should continue in its existence as a state right now. So you do not agree with Iran, for example.
Well, let me just ask, since you asked me the question, it's fair for me to get you to define the term so I can answer it. You've asked 2 questions. The first was, do you believe Israel has a right to exist? And the second question was, do you believe Israel should continue to go on as a nation state? And those are very different questions. So I often hear the phrase... Having
been created as a political entity in 1948,
does it have a right to exist? Is that what you're asking?
I don't want to get hung up on the right. Should it continue to exist? That's how I define narrowly Zionism.
Because the phrase you used was devised by the Israeli government. Of course, does it have a right to exist? And so my question to you would be, what does that mean?
Why don't you answer my question? It's a very simple question.
I don't know what your question is. Are you asking, does it have a right to exist, or do I want it to exist? Do I seek its destruction?
Fine, answer it that way.
Well, of course I don't seek its destruction.
Okay,
I've already said, as you know, because I said it to you, I don't want Israel to be destroyed or have to use nuclear weapons.
We've established that you are in that narrow terms a Zionist. If that's how
I'm
we're
in
going to
no
define
sense a
it.
Zionist. I don't want any country to be destroyed at all, and I don't want people to die, particularly ones who committed no crime, because I don't believe in killing innocents, period. That's the basis of Western civilization. Eastern civilization is a whole different view. They believe in collective punishment. I don't.
So you're in no sense a Zionist.
I don't even know what that means. Why don't you define the term, and then I'll tell you whether I am.
I've just defined it.
Look at what just happened. Douglas Murray tries to force a binary label onto Tucker. Are you a Zionist? Do you believe in a right to exist? Instead of taking the bait, Tucker asks a fundamental legal and moral question. Where does that right come from, and who gets it? Does Gaza have a right to exist? Does Lebanon? Because if only one state has rights while its neighbors get reduced to rubble, those aren't rights at all. They're special privileges. Watch how Murray struggles when forced to define his own terms.
You said that a Zionist in my narrow term, this definition is that the state of Israel, the political state of Israel, has the right to continue existing.
The right? Where does that right come from? What do you mean? These are I'm not being a lawyer about it. I just want to know what you're asking me.
You answer the question.
Because I don't know what you're asking me.
Let's go to the
Wait,
third.
no. I think a lot. You don't want to define your question, and I don't know why. I don't know what you're asking me. I've already said I don't want Israel to be destroyed. I don't want anyone to be killed. And you've said, does Israel have a right to exist? Does it have my question is, what right are you talking about? Does Britain have a right to exist? Does the United States have a right to exist?
There was a world order built up after 1945 which suggested that aggression should not be condoned into countries, that countries with borders have the right to continue.
I totally agree with that.
Okay.
Which is why the first thing that Israel did within 2 weeks of this war starting, which is supposedly existential for them, was take southern Lebanon, take someone else's country, as they have done repeatedly. And no one even mentions that. And so I guess I would be opposed to that because I think Lebanon has a right to exist. I thought Gaza had a right to exist. But I noticed that as soon as we start apportioning rights, only one country gets them.
No, I did not say that. You're absolutely putting words into my mouth.
So because I believe, here's what I do believe, since you asked. I believe in universally applicable standards. And if they're not universally applicable, they're not standards, they're preferences. That's why I believe in human rights, not ethnic rights. I don't think Jews have more rights or less rights than anyone else. I don't think Christians have more rights or less rights, blacks, Filipinos. I believe in human rights that derive from the creation of people by God.
That last line from Tucker Carlson is the entire argument in a single sentence. I believe in human rights, not ethnic rights. When you strip away the talking points, the debate tricks, and the media grandstanding, that is where mainstream political commentary completely breaks down. Because figures like Douglas Murray operate on selective application. When sovereign borders are crossed in Eastern Europe, we are told international law is absolute and inviolable. But when ground incursions move into southern Lebanon, or when entire populations in Gaza are forced past shifting military boundary markers, suddenly international law becomes complicated. Douglas Murray tries to invoke the post-1945 international order. But that post-1945 order, the Geneva Conventions, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, was designed specifically to prevent collective punishment and the destruction of civilian life. You cannot cite the post-1945 order to justify state actions that explicitly violate the Geneva Conventions. And let me address the casualty figure Murray let slip: 70,000. Official tracking from health authorities and international monitoring bodies has put total violent casualties and trauma deaths at or well past that threshold, with women and children making up the vast majority of verified residential deaths. Epidemiological assessments published in major medical journals like The Lancet and the BMJ have pointed out that when you include indirect deaths from starvation, destroyed healthcare infrastructure, and unrecovered bodies under the rubble, the true figure is significantly higher. Yet on network television, Douglas Murray treats that scale of human loss as a secondary byproduct or an optics problem. When you demand that human rights apply universally, to a child in Gaza, a citizen in Lebanon, or anyone else on earth, you are not taking a radical position. You are taking the only coherent moral position. If a right is not universal, it isn't a right. It's a preference backed by weapons. If you believe in universal human rights, equal accountability, and cutting through corporate media double talk, subscribe to The Honest Perspective. I'm Neil. Truth over access. People over profits. That's the honest perspective. And that's where I'll leave you.